Crowley. Up to 7 minutes, please.
Presiding Officer, this committee report tells us two things. Firstly, it tells us about the workings of the committee which produced it, and secondly, and more importantly, about the Scottish Government's proposals for an independent Scotland membership of the European Union. First, I wish to make it clear that the committee was split along the lines of those who want to see an independent Scotland and those who believe that Scotland's best interests will be served by remaining part of a strong, united kingdom within Europe. On the question of what an independent Scotland's position within the EU would be, the evidence showed that nothing is certain. Most witnesses believe that Article 49 remains the most likely route towards EU membership and that any negotiations will be tough. The timescale for those negotiations, as set out by the Scottish Government, remains highly optimistic at best. It is also clear there would need to be amendments to all relevant treaties of the European Union, that these would need to be agreed unanimously by all 28 member states. So what is it that will be up for negotiation? The report highlights some of the important areas, such as the single currency opt-out. It may be that we would have to commit to joining the euro at a point of entry or at a later time. Given that the Scottish Government is all over the place on the currency, and it would not be in an independent Scotland's best interest to keep the pound with no say over interest rates, money supply, the banks, employment targets or crisis measures, perhaps the euro is the nationalist plan B for a future currency. And whether it is the Schengen opt-outs for justice and security measures, or indeed the rebate itself, which would have major financial implications for the people of Scotland, on all these matters, while there is consensus, tough negotiations would be needed, nationalist ministers still insist that there would be no compromise. Now, that is not the view shared by the many experts who gave evidence to the committee, as the report shows. Aidan O'Neill QC stated, "One cannot assume that an independent Scotland will inherit all the benefits of negotiations that have previously been carried out on behalf of the UK as a whole." Indeed, the director of the Surrey International Law Centre went further when he said, and I quote, "The fundamental flaw in the White Paper is that it fails to acknowledge that EU membership of an independent Scotland would require the agreement of the EU institution and member states. They may decide not to offer Scotland opt-outs comparable to those that the UK would continue to enjoy." He went on to say that the Nationalist Government's White Paper that it does not provide a realistic assessment of the probable and foreseeable outcome of accession negotiations. I could continue to quote from many more experts in this field, all of whom say negotiations with the EU would be tough. Are they all wrong? If your definition of wrong is that you disagree with the wisdom of Mr Salmond and Ms Sturgeon, then yes, I suppose they are wrong. But there is far too much at stake for all these questions and issues to be brushed aside by nationalists set on independence at any cost. We know that there would be major concerns around the pensions of thousands of Scots due to EU rules on cross-border pensions, but again, important issues such as these are just brushed aside. So whether it is, I intend to make progress, so whether it is internationally recognised experts, whether it is the National Association of Pension Funds, whether it is indeed the President of the European Commission, no matter who it is, if you do not agree with Mr Salmond's grand vision, then you would be wrong. But this report, even with the amendments of the 4 nationalist members, which were in my view designed to shift the factual balance, does set out key evidence for the most important issues that to face the Scottish people as we move forward to the referendum in September. To summarise this report, there is no clear route to Scotland's EU membership within the EU treaties. The overwhelming legal view is that the correct process for an independent Scotland to follow would be Article 49. But regardless
Stuart Stevenson.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, could we just sit down a moment, please? Mr Riley, which intervention were you accepting?
Gentleman.
Mr Mike McKenzie. Mike McKenzie.
You're obviously concerned about the possibility of coming out of Europe, but with UKIP winning the elections in the rest of the UK just last week, don't you think there's a very high chance indeed that the rest of the UK will be coming out of Europe?
Alex Riley.
I think there is widespread consensus that it is in Scotland's interest, whether it's part of the United Kingdom or if the yes vote was successful in September, it's in Scotland's interest to remain part of Europe. Where that consensus breaks down and where the evidence that has been given to the committee is absolutely clear is that would not be straightforward and there would be major negotiations and major risks to the future of Scotland if we were to do so. But if I could move on in terms of summarising this report, the overwhelming legal view is that the correct process for an independent Scotland to follow would be Article 49. But regardless of the route taken to EU membership, the agreement of all 28 member states would be required. And that, I think, is important. We need 28 countries to sign up to the agreement. The timescales set out by the SNP are unrealistic as they are continuing of the existing UK opt-outs and rebates. It is clear that the SNP simply dismiss opposing arguments and other points of view rather than engaging in the issues. It is unclear what would happen if the SNP do not get everything they wish for. I wonder, Presiding Officer, if our future in Europe would be less secure under the plans of this nationalist government and if they are committed to giving the Scottish people an in-out referendum on EU membership if post-independence negotiations are not to go their way. This is a major issue as we move forward. I certainly welcome the report. The report gives a lot of information that people will be able to use as we move forward. Thank you.
Many thanks.